Story 1. My wife cheated with my best friends while on vacation. I accepted all her retribution offers, then divorced her. Part 1. It's been over 4 years since this happened. I, Chuck, was 37 at the time and had been with my wife, Chrissy, 36, for 16 years, married for 13 years. We lived a comfortable upper-middle-class life and have a 15-year-old daughter, Cora. I had two best friends that I had met in college. Eric and Mike. Eric, 35, was married to Emily, 31, and Mike, 35, had gotten divorced from his wife that spring. Through us, Chrissy and Emily had become best friends as well. As a group of 3 couples, we had been taking a week-long vacation every summer for a few years at this point. Everything was booked and ready when I broke my ankle 3 days before our flight. I decided to not go on the trip, as 1, I was to be non-weight-bearing for 16 weeks, 2, my meds made me extremely tired and sleepy, and 3, I just didn't want to be a burden to everyone else's fun. My wife offered to stay home with me, but I convinced her to not worry and go on with the trip. When Chrissy returned from the trip, she seemed like a whole new person. She had been having a tough work year, and the stress was high. I knew she needed a real break, and was really glad she got it. On top of that, she was very affectionate and attentive upon return, almost to the point you'd call it love bombing. I was not complaining. Our sex life seemed like we were in our early 20s. I chalked it up to guilt over leaving me behind and just the overall rest from the trip itself. Fast forward to a couple weeks after Thanksgiving. All had been going well. Chrissy and Emily had planned a girls' shopping weekend a couple hours away, with a hotel stay on Saturday night. Now, here's where the situation goes to shit. We are all on Snapchat. Eric and Emily have a couple of nieces, and started using it because it's the only way they can get them to message them back. I found that out myself when Cora got her first iPhone. Send a text, may as well be sending a smoke signal. Send a snap, immediate response. We had group chats and would all send each other nonsense often enough. That night, after sending my wife a snap of the dog, I flipped to the map thing. There were the Bitmojis of Chrissy and Emily and Mike. I zoomed way in and it appeared they were all at the same place. This didn't make any sense. Why would Mike be in a town 2.5 hours away staying at the same hotel as Chrissy and Emily? My mind went immediately to the worst-case scenario. I tried calling Chrissy at that point, but got no answer. I called again, then again. After the 4th call, I grabbed my keys and was about to start driving that way. Then I remembered I had a 15-year-old at home and couldn't just take off at 8:30 at night to a town 2.5 hours away. I relaxed for a moment and began to think. Eric's wife was also there. Maybe he knows something. I called Eric and he picked up. I told him about the Snapchat. It was weird though because he didn't seem surprised or concerned. Which momentarily relaxed me. Maybe I just missed something. That's when Eric verified my worst nightmares. He said, he knows they are all there. Emily and Mike finally convinced Chrissy to have another threesome with them. Another. WTF. I felt the room spin at that moment. My heart sank into my feet. I snapped to after a few moments and told Eric, you better fucking tell me everything right now. Eric, sounding defeated, said, I will. It started with the vacation back in July. The trip was basically 5 days, after you subtract the travel days on the front and end of the trip. The first day was largely just a chill day around the pool at the Airbnb. It was day 2 when things started to happen. I knew a full outing had been planned that day. Without their spouses, Mike and Chrissy kind of naturally paired off, seeing as they were with a married couple. It all seemed innocent enough and just friendly. However, Eric noted they seemed to get more comfortable with each other as the day went on. That night was a pretty heavy drinking night with dinner back at the B&B. The drinking continued through dinner and after. Emily noticed how much flirtier and closer Chrissy and Mike were getting. After a while, Eric and Emily went to their room and left Mike and Chrissy alone. After about an hour, Emily decided to quietly venture out to see what became of them. She went by Chrissy's room only to find she wasn't there. She then crept up to Mike's room to hear the clear, distinct sounds of sex between 2 drunk people trying to keep it down. Emily came back to the room and told Eric what was going on. I interrupted him at this point and said, how could she just let this happen? You said she noticed them getting like this during dinner. Why didn't she pull Chrissy aside and intervene? Eric then coldly said, because we didn't want to. Apparently, Eric and Emily have been mulling over an open relationship. They had agreed if something happened on the trip they would just let it happen. Eric admitted to me that he has always had a thing for my wife and thought this might be his opportunity, and it was. That was a kick in the teeth. I already had it verified that one of my close friends had betrayed me with my wife, and now another one did too. I cussed him out, and he just took it, tried to apologize, tried to make excuses. I told him to shove that up his ass and just finish the story. The next morning Emily went to talk to Christy about it. Chrissy had the expected guilt and extreme worry about being found out, especially since there were witnesses. She said it was a huge mistake, but also that it was really good, especially for drunk sex. Emily said, "Why stop? He just got divorced. You have been on edge because of work for a year now. We're on vacation and nothing came with you. Not your job. Not Chuck. Not Cora. You left your whole life behind. Consider it a free week. Eric and I won't say a thing, and we'll cover if anything comes up." Chrissy liked the sound of it but had apprehension. She went to talk to Mike, and then Mike came to Eric asking if they were for real about letting this happen. Eric said yes, just enjoy the week. In reality, he had his own scheme to sleep with my wife as well. Eric said over the next 3 days they stuck to all the plans for the trip. I know this to be true because all the expected IG and Facebook posts went up. I kept getting included in the Snapchat group from everyone, and Chrissy would call twice a day to check in, with intermittent texts throughout the day. I suspected absolutely nothing while back home recovering. Over those last 3 days, Mike and Chrissy basically acted like a newly dating couple. They made sure on outings that any pics, posts, snaps were innocent. Otherwise they held nothing back in terms of touching or kissing while out, and whenever they got back to the B&B it was almost always immediately to Mike's bed. They were not quiet about it. It was very evident what they were doing and for how long. Eric, wanting his chance with Chrissy, pressured Emily into proposing a swap on the final night. He isn't totally sure what was said but knows she and all other parties agreed. I interjected and said, "I don't need the details." Eric responded, "You do actually. Because it has to do with where she is now." On the final night, they swapped. Eric got to have Chrissy. However, he told me he was overly excited, and it did not last very long at all. That's when she just got up, went back down the hall and joined the other two. Eric's pride was majorly hurt as he could hear them down the hall for what seemed like forever. In fact, Emily never returned to their bed that night. This was the first time he felt regret about initiating an open marriage with his wife. The next day they traveled back, all swearing to take it to their grave. Eric went on to say as soon as they got back from vacation, Emily, who had first been apprehensive, was dead set on the open relationship now. He still thought it would benefit him even though he had grown some doubts. They landed on some ground rules. He wanted to have a list of people who were no-go, and she said, no, this was about being open sexually and they couldn't do that if people were off limits. It was gonna be the same for both of them, so he should be fine with it. If he wanted to try and fuck her sister he could, and she didn't want coworkers, exes, anyone off her list either. He agreed on the stipulation he knows everything, and has access to everything. Neither of them liked the other's demands but ended up agreeing to them. He told me they each made videos with the other stating they were agreeing to this arrangement, so the other couldn't use it against them if they ever divorced. I was sitting there thinking, this guy is a total fucking idiot. Eric then let me know how awful this whole situation has gone, telling me Emily has been highly active, while he is yet to manage a single date. As the months have crept on, it only put a greater void between the two of them, and he said he already has divorce papers drawn up. At that point he offered up all evidence he had. I accepted. Shortly after there was a whole folder in my inbox. The vast majority of stuff was his wife with other men. Co-workers, randoms, she had been busy. But there were plenty of messages between Chrissy and Emily. I picked up that Emily and Mike had started a regular affair about 4 months earlier. About 1 month ago the conversation of the threesome started. That whole time after the vacation Chrissy had been really good to me, and seemed much happier than before. In the beginning of the convo she stuck to the idea that what happened on vacation was it. It was vacation from reality, and now it was over and life would just go on like normal. About 2 weeks ago she started to show some interest at Emily's encouragement for a repeat of that final vacation day. This is when Mike entered the conversation too. Chrissy agrees at this point and the plan comes to be. In addition, Eric had photos of Chrissy and Mike kissing, and a recording of him having sex with her. The son of a bitch had sneakily recorded it. Not the best quality video but he did manage to get a clear shot of her face and tattoo. I thanked him for the evidence. He tried to apologize again, then I told him he was a piece of shit, and he better never contact me again. With the whole betrayal now out in the open, it was time to turn my attention back to my wife. Part 2. In all the time I was talking to Eric, I still had not gotten a call back from Chrissy. I called 2 more times and then just said fuck it and sent her a pic of her and Mike kissing. The return call was immediate. I didn't answer. She kept calling and I kept ignoring. Eventually she switched to text. The first text was as cliché as it gets. I can explain. I sent back, don't bother. I already got the whole story from Eric, Tell your trashy little friend he has divorce papers for her. Just like yours will come on Monday. At that point I blocked her number. Chrissy came into the house frantically at about 1:30 a.m. She immediately broke down in tears and tried to hug me. I blocked the advance and she began apologizing profusely and begging for forgiveness. I told her to save it. We had a lot to talk about. I wanted every question answered 100% honestly. If I thought she was lying, I would end the conversation and file for divorce on Monday. I had tons of evidence and was not afraid to show the world who she is. I then asked her, "What do you want?" She said she wanted to show me how sorry she was. She wanted to work for forgiveness, and for us to work past this. I told her I didn't think that was possible, but would let her explain herself. I asked why she cheated in the first place. She said she had a lot of fun that day, was feeling good and relaxed. She hadn't felt that way in a long time. Work has been so stressful for so long. She let the moment, the drinks, take over and just went with it. She tried telling me how terrible she felt after, but I cut her off. I said, "Okay, not condoning, not forgiving, but that only explains the drunk sex you had the first time. It doesn't explain the rest of the week. You weren't drunk when you were fucking him 3 to 4 times a day for the rest of the trip. Probably weren't too drunk when you fucked Eric then went and had sandwich sex after." She looked at me with tears and said, "When in Rome?" I replied, "Are you fucking kidding me? That's it." She started again. "Well, let's be real. What's the difference between 1 time and 100? You'd still react this way. Once I had already fucked up. Was there really any difference in stopping or not? Would you feel different?" I was in a fantasy land, and just embraced it while I was there. I never intended for you to find out, and I never intended to do this again. I wish I could take it all back. I was despondent. That's the most terrible thing I've ever heard. She just said, "You asked me to be honest." I asked if she was unhappy, if she was tired of me, if I didn't do it for her anymore. She said no, "I love you, I'm happy," all the usual crap. That we have a good marriage, she just wanted to feel wild, feel excited. We had gotten somewhat monotonous and this experience was exhilarating. Her plan had been to have this much sex with me, but when I didn't go she at first thought, well, that's out, but once it was available she let herself get taken by the moment. I asked about the swapping. She said that was a huge mistake. Emily had talked to her about that on the last day, and about how they were trying an open relationship. She admitted to being curious about Eric. Mostly though she kind of felt obligated. If they were going to cover, this was kind of payback, and a way for them to have something to write on the secret as well. I asked about this weekend. Asked why she agreed to that if she was so sorry about betraying me the first time. Chrissy said she never intended to step out of line again, and swore she was going to make the most of our relationship going forward. I now think about the months following the vacation and retch. She had been talking with Emily like usual, and Emily just seemed like she was having the time of her life now that she was open. Chrissy admitted to being a little jealous. Emily had been with several men and Chrissy was living a bit vicariously through her. When Emily started the affair with Mike she knew what she was missing out on, and became more jealous. For the record, I know Mike had a rep in college for being a ladies' man, and if I'm being honest he was the best looking of the three of us. He had managed to stay the most fit as he aged and that had only improved post-divorce. Chrissy said when the threesome got proposed she really tried to stay strong and not get drawn in, but as the weeks went on she found herself just thinking about that. She told me she caved because the spontaneous one had been really good and honestly thought she could get away with it. At that point she asked how I figured it out, and I said I didn't have to answer that. I asked her if there was anything else and she said no, she just wanted a chance to earn trust, forgiveness and to reconcile. I told her I didn't believe that. I mean, come on, 16 years totally faithful, then total porn star with my 2 best friends for a whole week. She swore, offered her phone, laptop, old phones, old email accounts. I said, no, I don't need all that, because it doesn't matter. You've done enough that I know about already. I am hurt, betrayed, and can't stand to look at you. I am done, and I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. When I woke up that Monday morning Chrissy was still home. She usually was on her way to the office but had taken the day off, anticipating I had done the same thing. Once Cora was off to school, she began her love bombing. I told her I didn't care. I'd already seen all this before. She said she had a proposal for me. All access to her, all of her stuff, all the time, marriage counseling, she would go to individual counseling, cut off Emily, Mike, anyone I wanted permanently, and she would be an open book at all times for any questions. I said those are just things you do when you are trying to reconcile. I don't want to be a warden at home and I don't want to reconcile. She begged and pleaded, and asked that I just wait a week, just a week, And if next Monday I still felt the same, she would sign no matter what, no contest. I looked at her and said, "You swear to that? If I wait a week we will have a totally uncontested divorce, no dragging it out at all." She swore. I agreed to the 1-week trial, which seemed worth the risk. If she just signed and agreed, that would save us both time and money. If she was lying and still fought the divorce, well, it was just one awkward, terrible week I was losing. She continued to love bombs and consistently tried initiating sex. I rejected these usual efforts, and on Thursday night told her I was not moved in any way and still planned to file on Monday. She broke down and ran into the guest room until the next morning. Friday after work I could tell she had something in mind. I really didn't care. I was literally counting the hours until I could get rid of her at this point. The love bombing was not working, and I was actually getting annoyed with her overzealous efforts. She said she thought we couldn't go on because of the imbalance that her infidelity had caused. I wasn't sure at first if she was implying what I thought she was implying, but she was. Chrissy said we should have a threesome. I said she did more than that. She said okay, and you can have a week off marriage too. I pointed out that was worthless. I just heard all about Eric's disastrous open marriage. I'm a guy, and unless you're a rich guy or a famous guy, you're not picking up women that easily, especially as a mid-30s already married man. There's no point in me sitting in bars for a week or on dating apps not getting matches. She said, okay, you can have 10 hall passes that never expire instead. That can be the same woman or 10 different. I replied, you think that's not gonna impact our life? You're gonna be okay with that? I doubt it. She said she won't let it suffer. She will make a huge effort to be available for all of my needs, and we can do anything I've ever wanted. I know that what I did next was sleazy, maybe not as bad as what she did. Still sleazy though, but at the time, I didn't really care. Part 3. I made it clear that I wouldn't let these concessions just be a way to stall. If she wanted me to stay, then these things needed to happen sooner than later. I wanted the threesome to be her priority. I said she needed to have at least someone agreeing by February 1st or I was out. I don't know how she found her, but in the week between Christmas and New Year's she showed me a picture of a woman from her spin class. She was gorgeous, and I couldn't believe she found someone that quick and someone so attractive. Tiffany was 24 years old. Her and Chrissy had been chatting at spin for months, but nothing past regular small talk. I asked how, and Chrissy just said she had her ways. My assumption was she offered her money. About 2 weeks later was the big night. I made it a point to make sure Chrissy was fully involved and didn't feel left out. I mean, I still had my fun, but I knew this would make Chrissy think we were on the right track. I wasn't wrong. She told me how she only did this to try and win me back, but that the whole experience was actually amazing. Prior to that I had been cashing in on her obligation of being overtly sexual with me. After the threesome it stopped feeling like she was just meeting an obligation. She seemed excited to be with me and to try new things. Although, I think a part of it was her hope that I would abandon the hall passes. Mid-February I took the first plunge into using the hall passes. There was a 27-year-old restaurant manager, Sabrina, close to my work. I had frequented it often and always thought she was a little flirty with me. I asked her out. I told her I was 2 months into my divorce proceedings. Not true. I said we were still living in the same house but that I had moved into the basement. Also not true. Sabrina seemed hesitant but agreed to the date. Later on, I asked her what made her agree knowing my situation, and she said she noticed the first time I came in without my wedding ring. I took it off after I caught my wife, and since by the time I asked her my tan line was fading away, it meant I wasn't just taking it off to meet women, but not wearing it at all. During all of this, Chrissy had been pushing that we start marriage counseling. I stayed steadfast that I wasn't interested in doing that until I had used all my passes. By April I had seen Sabrina 7 times. That really tore Chrissy up, and while today I regret doing this to her, at the time I felt justified. As I began to run out of my passes, I came to realize I was more and more interested in pursuing something official with Sabrina. I decided it was time to stop pretending to reconcile. I also think I had hurt Chrissy enough. I still feel heavy guilt for this today. When I said it didn't work, and I still wanted to divorce, she didn't fight me. She was sad, she seemed defeated, but she didn't fight it. I found a small 2-bedroom house and left Chrissy in our family home. When I sat Cora down to tell her we were divorcing, I told her the appropriate amount of truth. I didn't put all the blame on her mother, and owned up to my own behaviors during this. I focused on letting her know we both loved her, and wanted the best, but we both wronged each other and had to separate. The 3 of us decided that 50-50 custody was best, so she alternated week to week staying at each other's place. It took until October for the divorce to go final. I dated Sabrina the entire time. Cora and her got along fine. I was happy Cora didn't see her as the other woman, or anything. They never had a step-parent vibe or anything, but we're friendly in the way a child is with their parents' friends. My relationship with Sabrina lasted about 2 years. It ended because I don't want to marry again, or have more children. Chrissy had done some sporadic dating over the last couple years, one guy she was with for about 11 months. Then something weird happened this past spring. We have co-parented pretty effectively through all this. The one thing we both wanted was to be there for our daughter. We've been amicable through all of her events and for her sake. When her high school graduation hit, we ended up sitting by each other. What should have been awkward just wasn't. We started joking around, talking, and got a little flirty. It was refreshing. A week later, I was still thinking of the fun I had at graduation. I decided to call Chrissy and ask her out. She said, "Absolutely not." This caused quite the swell of embarrassment. Luckily that was only temporary. After a long pause, she continued, "Unless we start couples counseling." I agreed. We had our first session on a Thursday, and our second first date on that Friday. It's been 6 months since that graduation. We are still doing counseling, dating, and have also started exploring the concept of alternative lifestyles. Gonna take that slow. Things are going well. Chrissy even brought up the idea of me moving back to our family home. Cora can't believe we are getting back together, and says it's weird. She told me when she got back from her first semester at college last week that she wasn't sure if she was happy or concerned. She just knows for sure she doesn't want any details of any kind in regards to any of our exploits. Eric divorced Emily and ran for the hills. He put in a work transfer and now lives 4 states away. Mike and Emily tried to make a real relationship work for about a month after her divorce. Chrissy got back in contact with Emily after ours, and learned that pretty much sex was the only thing they had in common, and it fizzled out pretty quick. Emily remarried a guy that used to work with Eric, and the company moved him when he was promoted to a regional manager spot. He is now Eric's direct boss, which I found hilarious. Little did the guy know though, Eric and Emily started having an affair behind his back. I say I did because someone tipped that guy off, probably out of spite, and now he's out for blood from both of them. Motherfucker Mike, as I refer to him, is still around and still single to this day. He got jumped one night after coming out of a local bar by some masked assailant. Rumor has it he was beaten up pretty good and may have gotten kicked in the balls 12 times. I don't know what the future holds from here, but today, I can't complain. I'll be sure to update the masses if it ever gets interesting again. Until then, thanks for reading. P.S. Chrissy paid Tiffany $350 for the threesome. Story 2. My wife cheated on me thinking to do a wealthy life, but it didn't went exactly like she was thinking. I have been with S for 5 years and married for 2, and in those 7 years everything for me was great. When we first met it was love at the first sight. I loved her more and more in the years. My friends even made fun of me for my changed character when I was with her. Before meeting her I was usually a cold, tough and very hard man. My character came from my experience in the army and due to my parents' character, and I have never been so vulnerable with anyone apart from her. So in these 7 years everything for me was perfect. I was doing a job that was paying me very well. I finally had some money and I was extremely in love with the woman of my dreams. Thinking now I was smart enough to make a trust where I put all my money and properties and gave to my best friend and my sister the rule of executors. I did this because my best friend was divorced and he must split all his money and properties with his ex-wife when she never contributed to pay a single cent. So I did this to be protected from a possible, but at that time impossible divorce, and for emergencies, because at that time I wasn't financially stable, so I must have a security net. Then before the marriage we both agreed to do a prenup where the only condition was that if someone of us would cheat she wouldn't have any type of alimony. In my country it is legal. The thing is that when she proposed to me this, I was a bit in shock because I never thought for 1 second to cheat on her or that she would cheat on me, so it went out of the blue, but I accepted it. The first year of marriage was perfect. We were wealthy thanks to my job that was paying very well. We rented a very big and nice house, enjoyed our life, had amazing experiences, went to amazing places for vacations, and we went out to meet new people and friends. Unfortunately, the second year wasn't so good because I started to work with my company to make sign a very big client with us, so I admit that I was using all my energies for my work, and I told her this, but she was okay because my work was our first and only resource of money since she wasn't having any intention to work but just being a stay-home wife. Anyway, I knew that my work was getting difficult and I was always tired after it, but I tried my best to make her happy and satisfied during the stressful period, about 6 months. In fact, many times I put aside my personal life to prioritize her over myself just to not make her sad, feeling alone and without attention. My routine was getting up very early in the morning, going to the gym, making breakfast for her, working, coming home and preparing her dinner, and then spending time with her instead of relaxing. I went like this for 6 months, and after the client finally signed with us, I booked a 2-month vacation in her favorite place, Paris, to release stress and tension. The vacation went very well because I thought that we became stronger and more in love with each other, but when we came back home I noticed that she was changing. She became distant, cold, and always looking at the phone instead of talking with me like before. I tried to talk to her about this many times, but her excuse was personal problems and stress, so I let it slide. This went for 6 months. One day I was having a very important meeting where the big boss was about to make an announcement, so I was nervous because finally my hard work and dedication were about to pay off with a big raise. In fact, I had a bonus of 30% on my salary thanks to the sign with the big client, and after the meeting I told my coworkers that I was about to take a couple days of vacation to celebrate the important news, and they all agreed. So that day I went home early to give the announcement to my lovely wife, but when I parked my car I heard very loud voices of someone who was doing sex coming from my house, but I thought that I heard wrong because my wife would be going shopping with her friend. Until, when I got near the door, I heard her voice, so I took a moment to take out my phone and record the scene. When I entered, the end of the world happened. I caught her having sex with a random guy, and when I called her name the shock on her face was just absolutely priceless. After I entered and I recorded for like 1 minute, the guy sneaked out of our house partially nude and with clothes in his hands, leaving my wife covered with a cushion. I swear to God I wanted to destroy everything, but I was just in shock and didn't say anything. I went to my room to pack all my stuff, and she started angrily to accuse me of cheating and that all this wasn't real and that I was just dreaming. Thinking now what she was saying was just absurd and with zero sense. I took like 30 minutes to pack my stuff and drove away, and when I left that house I just had a sense of relief and that all my anger and tension was getting away. I stayed in a hotel for some days while my phone was bombarded with calls and texts from her. I ignored everything and changed my number. After a few more days I contacted a lawyer and told him all the situation, and he said, "You are a smart ass. I can guarantee that apart from having half of your money she wouldn't get nothing else from you." So after a few months of no contact I sent her the divorce papers. In those months of no contact I heard that she found a job to barely maintain the house, and when she got my divorce papers she went on a meeting with her lawyer and mine with a big smile on her face and said, "I did the right thing cheating on you. I will have all your money and I won't work for the rest of my life." Me and my lawyer smiled at each other, and he put on the table the prenup agreement, and she immediately understood her mistake. She would only have half of my money and nothing else. Then S started to cry and beg me to forgive her, that it was just a little mistake, that she loves me and this kind of stuff. This scene went on for 20 minutes and finally she signed the papers. She realized that the money she would have were enough to pay 5 months of rent of our house and that she was fucked up. While I was going out of the place she ran behind me repeating all the stuff. It was a mistake, she loves me, I must forgive her, and all this shit. Coming to nowadays? I met a new girl and we have been dating for a few months. I'm happy. I have my work that pays me well and my life is again happy. From what I heard she stayed at our old house for some months until the contract was over, and now she is living in a small apartment near her new workplace. Of course she tried again to contact me, but I never answered her texts and calls because I don't feel anything for her but just indifference. I still thank my best friend for his advice. Story 3. My wife pressured me into swinging so she could cheat. Now I'm divorcing her and want to date the woman she paired me off with. My wife, Madison 26, of 2 years pressured me into an open relationship. That itself almost ended our marriage. Instead of doing damage control on our relationship, she tried to switch us to swinging so she could still sleep with her coworker, Leland M. 27. Well, we did that, and apparently myself and Leland's now ex-girlfriend Cora, F. 21, didn't do it right. This caused a huge argument between Madison and I. I went into this argument determined to get the truth out of her one way or another, but that proved to be way easier than I thought it would. She was so pissed off that she just spouted off everything in her anger. Like it was my fault. As I listened to Madison go on and on about what I should have done, I realized all of this was just about her living out whatever fantasy she had created in her head. In her mind, I was also supposed to be focused on her, while she was fucking Leland. I am still having a hard time wrapping my mind around how she really saw that going. These two wanted to fuck each other, and didn't want to risk their situations to do so. They didn't want Cora and I to talk to each other. They thought that we wouldn't have it in us to just go with it. All I was a roadblock. She didn't want to give me up but also wanted to fuck around. Essentially what she really wanted was a one-sided open relationship. She just couldn't pull it off, and when I got my first taste she also couldn't handle that. I knew as she ranted that this marriage was done. I never asked for all this E&M stuff. She did. Well, she got what she wished for. Hope it was worth it. I told her I was divorcing her, left that night, and got myself a hotel room for a few days. I also sent a text to Cora to check in on her. She was having a huge fight with Leland that ended with her breaking up with him and leaving their apartment. She is getting off a little bit easier than I am. She was not on that lease, as she had moved in with him just months earlier. They weren't married. I am. I talked to a divorce lawyer on Monday, just 2 days after the fallout. She told me she could have papers drawn and served this very week. I've got some savings and intend to break our lease and find my own place. Cora ended up staying with me for the 3 days I stayed in the hotel. I can't deny that I am really smitten with her. We spent those 3 days getting to know each other, and I swear I could have talked with her for another 3 days straight. The passion was there too. It wasn't just the overall mood from the party. We couldn't keep our hands off each other. After 3 days I returned to my apartment just to get some stuff. I'll stay with my sister for now. I got a lead on an apartment of my own, but it won't be ready until next weekend. Madison wasn't there when I went to get my stuff, and has not texted me. This is typical behavior, as the cold shoulder is her go-to. It used to drive me crazy, but now I'm thankful for it. It's Friday night. I got word that the divorce papers were served to her today. My lawyer told me she didn't even react. I'm sure she wasn't surprised. It should be easy. We rented, each had our own bank accounts, no kids, and this is a no-fault state. I keep feeling like I should be sad or angry, but I just feel relieved. The last few months have been way too hard. I love her, but what she put me through wasn't fair, and I harbor resentment. I have been texting with Cora pretty much non-stop since she went to her parents' house on Wednesday. I asked her out on a real date for tonight, but she couldn't because of a family thing. We have one planned for tomorrow. I feel like a teenager. I'm so nervous, which makes no sense considering we've had sex several times already. It's just too much time to think. I'm obsessing about where I should take her, what I should wear, should I get a haircut during the day tomorrow. It just feels different, even different than when Madison and I started dating. Anyway, that's the update. It's been a weird few months, and even weirder week. I think it's going my way though. The pain of my marriage has been replaced by excitement for the new. It may just be NRE talking, but at this point I don't think I have anything to lose by letting it ride. Story 4. I think my boyfriend is lying about his divorce. I, female 42, and my boyfriend, 48, have been together for 5 years. We met online, something I had never thought I would try, but at the time, I had been single for many years and my sister had recommended it to me. I was reluctant at first. She kept telling me how she had found many dates through this website and that it would be perfect for me as I'm always busy working, so I could just use it in my free time or only when I felt like it. Anyway, one night over dinner she told me about this man she had recently met through the website and how perfect he was for her and how she could see a future with him. So I gave in. I gave it a try, not expecting to actually find someone, but when I matched with Carl, we hit it off instantly. He was so funny and charming, so we exchanged numbers and then agreed to meet for coffee the following week. When we met for coffee that day, Carl told me that he had just gotten a divorce from his wife, 46, of many years, who he has one daughter, 25, with. I was fine with this. I'm not really the jealous type of person, and he had assured me that he was ready to move on and that their relationship had been dying for ages. The first date went well, and after a few more successful dates, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I was over the moon as I really liked Carl. I have always been very passionate about my work. I'm a nurse, so my job is very demanding and intensive, which means I work most nights during the week, but still, I wouldn't change it for the world. I thought this may be a problem with Carl when we first started dating, as I wouldn't be available most nights, and during the day after working a shift, I would be catching up on sleep and therefore, not available to see him or talk to him. However, this was not the case. Carl thought it was perfect, as he told me that he had a very busy schedule too with his work, business appointments and making time to see his daughter. Carl told me that he was always free on a Tuesday, which happened to align perfectly with my work schedule as I didn't work on Monday or Tuesday nights. He started coming over to my house every single Tuesday, pretty much every single week since, and that was 5 years ago. Here's where it starts to get a little bit weird though. Since we agreed to see each other on Tuesdays, Carl has come to my house every single Tuesday 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. but refuses to see me any other day and out of that time frame. He has always arrived perfectly on time at 11 a.m. and always left promptly at 3 p.m. No exceptions. As well as this, every single time he comes over, he brings this tiny, dirty chihuahua along with him. Well, last week, I found out that this dog he has been bringing belongs to his ex-wife. His excuse for this was that he likes taking the dog on walks, and they do 10 miles of walking every day together, but he works too much to commit to getting a dog for himself. I found this to be really odd, but I didn't question him about it any further. I know 10 miles might seem like a lot to walk the dog every day, and to be honest, I don't quite believe it myself, but I know that he does walk the dog regularly, as every Wednesday and Thursday he calls me whilst he walks the dog. This is always between 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., with again, no exceptions. He always ends the call at exactly 6:30 and always calls at exactly 4. Anyways, a couple years ago I got the dreaded call that my dad died. I was absolutely distraught, as he was my biggest supporter and was always there for me. I asked Carl if he would come to the funeral with me, but he refused, as the funeral was being held on a Sunday and not during his allotted time to see me, Tuesdays 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Of course I was upset by this, but eventually, I convinced myself that he was probably just busy. Fast forward another year, I had become very sick and I had ended up in hospital. It was so serious that the doctors had told me I would have died had I waited another day to seek medical help. I called Carl in despair and asked if he would bring me some clothes I had at home and drop them off at the hospital. Carl refused because I had asked him on a Saturday and not on a Tuesday. I was in so much pain. I was in the hospital for months. I constantly begged Carl to see me, and again, he refused unless it was on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The final reason that made me think my boyfriend may be cheating on me with his ex-wife was last month at his daughter's wedding. The wedding was to be held in Italy, and the plan was for Carl and his ex-wife to fly out there together 4 days before the wedding and for me to fly out by myself a day before the wedding. Carl's daughter had rented out a huge, luxurious villa for close family and friends to stay in before and after the wedding. I thought this was perfect. I have never spent the night with Carl, so I thought us sharing a bed would be a huge turning point in our relationship. That was until I found out that Carl and his ex-wife would be sleeping in the villa and I would be sleeping in a converted barn by myself at the bottom of the villa garden. I asked Carl if I could please sleep in the villa with him, but he refused, so I refused to go to the wedding and stay home. On top of this, I have never been to Carl's house. In fact, I don't even know where he lives, and he has blocked me on all of his social media. I can only contact him on WhatsApp. I think Carl may have been lying to me when we first met about his divorce to his wife. I'm starting to get the impression that he is actually having an affair with me and cheating on his wife. He's so secretive with me and appears to still have a lot of contact with her. Or maybe they decided to rekindle their relationship after their divorce. Or maybe I'm overthinking and they are just really close friends. I mean, they do have a daughter together. So Reddit, am I being crazy? What should I do? Edit. Thank you everyone for your helpful insight and comments. I have been trying to read through them all. For all those saying this story isn't real, I can assure you that it 100% is. Obviously now I am having severe doubts about him and what he has told me. I'm realizing how stupid I looked in this relationship. Some of you don't seem to realize that when you're truly in love you really don't want to lose that person. For those offering helpful advice, thank you. I have a plan in place for when I see him this Tuesday, and I will update you all after that. Update. Hi everyone, I'm sorry this update has taken so long. To be honest, I forgot I had posted this story here. Anyway, I confronted Carl about his ex-wife around 2 weeks after I had posted this story. He obviously denied everything. I don't remember everything that happened, but he did call me a crazy bitch. I had never seen him this angry before. At this point, I knew I was already done with our relationship. I just wanted to finally get some answers after 5 years of being together. Around December, he came over, on a Tuesday, obviously 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., and after that he left, forever. Story 5. Did I deserve to be cheated on? And should I stay or should I leave? A little context so there's no confusion. Me, M19, and my ex F18, were together off and on for the past 2 years. Our relationship was nowhere near perfect and I was the problem. We first got together in high school. I was in my senior year and she was in her junior year. We started dating and it was perfect for about 3 months, however not because of her but because of me. She was everything any man could have ever dreamed of. She was sweet, full of life, warm-hearted, caring, motherly, and most important, she was in love with me. She did anything I asked and did everything she possibly could have to make me the happiest man on earth. That's the thing though, I wasn't a man. I was a child. At first I was obsessed, in love, infatuated and felt like I really had found the one. However, after the first 3 months, we started arguing and me being nonchalant and childish made things worse. I would belittle her feelings and disregard, and not only that but blame her for everything. I was an asshole, cold-hearted and just a genuine dick. She would come to me about her feelings and our issues and I wanted no part of it. I was so nonchalant I would just brush off any problems or her hurt feelings and carry on with my day or distract myself with video games. I know it's my fault and what I did was wrong, but I didn't want any part of the relationship. It's no excuse, but there's 2 sides to every story. Allow me to explain. After the first 3 months and as the honeymoon phase ended, we were met with countless arguments. We couldn't go a day without arguing, and it was most defiantly my fault. At the time though, I didn't see things like that and just blamed her for everything. I was narcissistic and in denial. Don't get me wrong, I loved her and still do, and I never purposely meant to do those things. I won't even try to justify it, but at the time I didn't know any better. I loved her and cared so much about her with all my heart. She was an angel, and I destroyed her and took her for granted. It was never my intention, and I genuinely don't know how I was that kind of person anyway. As the arguments grew, it felt like a job to be in the relationship. I was never in a relationship with anyone who loved to the fullest, and honestly I thought it was annoying at the time. I was so wrong. As the arguments grew, it felt more and more like a job, to the point where I stopped caring. I stopped trying to fix arguments. I stopped worrying about planning dates, or getting a job, or making her happy, and even sex. I was miserable. It took a while to realize, but she cared. She cared so much, in fact, she tried to carry our relationship on her back for a couple months longer. I took it for granted, and it breaks my heart to even think about it. About 5 to 6 months she started cheating. She started cheating with any guy who provided her with what I wasn't. Even my best friend. I didn't know she was cheated at the time. I'll talk more about this in a second. She broke up with me and posted her and another guy on her story purposely for me to see just hours later. She was hurt by me. Broken. All she wanted was for me to feel the same way she did. I was hurt. Broken. And although it may seem hard to believe after everything I did love her, and I did care deep down inside. Once I saw that picture, I knew it was over and done with. I knew I had lost the girl of my dreams. I took her for granted. I broke this beautiful, sweet soul and expected her to be there for me whenever. I'm so sorry. After I saw the picture and after I mourned, grieved and contemplated suicidal mayo, I picked myself back up and started taking care of myself. I was in the gym nonstop. Got a job and started figuring out my career choices. I ended up picking the Navy to travel and experience the world, and I heard it makes boys into men, and I wanted to be the man she deserved. I dropped the nonchalant act and started feeling my feelings and being more open-minded and more caring and empathetic. I was hurt still, yes, very much so, but I knew I was the problem. She made it very clear. So I focused on myself and became the man she deserved. After some time she contacted me saying the picture she posted of the guy wasn't a guy, it was her friend. I didn't believe her, but I was so hurt and in love and regretted taking her for granted. I wasn't going to miss this shot to rewrite my wrongs. So we started talking again and eventually got together. It was different. Horrible. But it was because she was acting the same way I treated her. She had turned into who I used to be. She was lying, didn't care, nonchalant, wasn't putting any effort in. I was trying so hard and doing everything I could have, such as cleaning myself up, taking her out, buying her things, being there emotionally, etc. I was pretty much trying to give her everything she needed to begin with, not even thinking about the possibility that it could be too late. And in fact it was. While I was trying so hard, she was out cheating. Week after week I would find out something new. Whether it was about the stuff she was doing present time or the stuff she had done while we were together back then. It broke me again and again and again and over again. After a few weeks of that, I finally had enough and said, look, I'm not playing games anymore. I'm trying to give you my all. Be honest here and now, lay it all on the table, just tell the truth and the full truth. And out come so much truth I questioned if she ever loved me. All the time she played guilty and played like the victim. She was lying and out cheating. Well, after she gave up on us about 5 to 6 months in. I don't blame her for the things she's done. I deserved it, honestly. Just to mention, I never cheated and was loyal the entire relationship. No matter how hard things got or no matter how bad I wanted out, I never cheated nor went to anyone else. We took some time apart and had a huge conversation about it all, and now here we are. She's putting in effort again. She's showing me she loves me. She's being a good girlfriend, and I go through her phone and I find nothing wrong. I don't know what to do. I have zero trust for her and she knows that, and she's okay with that. She gives me reassurance and makes sure I know I'm the only one she wants. Also, she wants to start a family. Did I deserve to be cheated on? I don't know what I should do anymore. I don't trust her, but I want to, and I just want to be happy and in a good relationship with her, but I don't know if she's still doing the things she was doing before. I don't know. Story 6. My mother cheated on my father. I'll refer to my mother's lover as John. August 2021. With 100,000 euros, my mother went up to another to start a new business in another city. For me, it was a relief. She always reminded me of how much of a failure I am, and I do nothing but playing video games. But for my father, he was a bit insecure. Normally, she would call me or my brother once in a while and visit us once or twice a month, but then, half a year later, we hardly ever hear anything from her. We didn't care much and just let it pass because it was Christmas and she might be busy. My brother went there to visit her for some days and met a man who had quite a close relationship with my mother. 2 months later I went with my brother and the same thought came to my mind when I met this man. In summer, my brother went again and asked my mother about this man and she lied to him saying that it was a friend of her and there's nothing to worry. He had nothing to argue with and stayed in Salience. My father went to see her and he only saw a woman who was uncomfortable with his presence. He arrived at 3 a.m. and was gone already by 5 a.m. And finally, a few months ago, I went to her business without her noticing and I saw an employee of her, he'll go by the name of Sam. Sam did not know about my mother's affair, but told me that no one liked John and it is strange why my mother wanted him to stay even though he wasn't making any profit from his ideas for the business. Anyways, 2 weeks ago my mother came back and sell all of her business for $150,000, bought 2 cars with my father's money without him noticing and gave another $60,000 to my cousin's studies also from my father's account and left us with $10,000 in total. Her last words to me was that everything was my father's fault because he was unable to show love. I believe that when a person is not taught how to love, it is really difficult to show anything in the future. My father thought that giving everything my mother wanted would be enough, such as Gucci or Balenciaga clothes, cars like Mercedes or Tesla. He always worked really hard and had no vacations just for my mother to have everything she wanted, but in the end, she left him, left my brother and left me. I'm not mad, but I definitely don't love her anymore. She's still my mother, legally, but I'm not seeing her as before. She tried to contact me several times but I don't know what to do. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.